Welcome. This is Indisputable. I'm Sharon Reed, in for Dr. Rashad Ritchie today. And joining us once again, as special guest co-host, is the one and only Mr. Politics and Paper, doing other things too, serving his community in St. Louis, Jackson White. How are you, Jackson?
I'm pretty fantastic. I went sledding a couple of days ago for the first time since I was in high school at Art Hill, the classic Art
Oh,
Hill and
sure.
classic Forest Park, St. Louis, Missouri. And it was a wonderful time. And like I'm starting to get ready for the snow to leave because
Yeah.
like you play in it a little bit and then it's like, okay, it's freezing cold outside. But overall, I'm doing pretty good. It's good to be here.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing. Takes me back to my youth. Wasn't that long ago. Atlanta, where I am, is preparing for some tough weather. And of course, we're thinking about our friends out west in California facing those incredible, just incredible fires there. So we wish them the best. But what do you say we get after it, Jackson?
Let's do it.
And
Let's make it happen.
yeah, let's begin with a real fight. We'll call it a heated altercation. A mayor and councilman get into it during a meeting. An Enigma City Council meeting ends in an argument between the mayor and the councilman. Watch this.
See, so this is a city council meeting.
Come on, go for it. I promise you, I will walk your out right in front of God. You hear me? Say it, boy. Say it. Do it. Say it. Say what? Because it's a bald-faced lie. But you say it, buddy. No, you say it. You say it, you son of a. I'm about to whip your. Come on, do it. Come on, Ronald. Come on, do it. Ronald, grow up. Stop.
That's enough. Hear me?
Do you know what he's been accused me of?
That's enough.
No, it ain't.
Yeah, it is.
No, it ain't. Ronald, please.
If you're going to get into it, get into it.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
A lot of jawing back and forth. Let's tell you more about this one, shall we? The argument broke out between Mayor Cecil Giddens and Councilman Ronald Harbin. In the video you saw, Councilman Harbin's wife is heard calling the mayor childish. Harbin responds by saying the mayor needs to grow up. Moments after, the mayor responds to Councilman Harbin's wife by saying, "Hey, Mrs. Harbin, do you know the real reason why Ron lost his job?" WALB. I mean, if she's going to get into it, he's going to address her. Okay, so this goes deeper. The mayor told WALB that this is not the first time the pair have gotten into a heated debate, but he couldn't believe it got this unruly. I mean, they really wanted a piece of one another now, didn't they? Yes, they did. The police were trying to push him back, and he was pushing the police into. I reckon he was going to knock me down, said Giddens. Former council members call this incident embarrassing and believe it's an inaccurate representation of the city. We'll see about that. Right now, this is the one we have. The mayor was arrested and faced assault charges shortly after. Now, this is embarrassing. That's the
How old is
mayor. We're going to find out a lot more to know. You see the footage there, said the picture under the mugshot. This is an active and ongoing case. Look, politics is heated, particularly in some smaller jurisdictions where everybody knows each other. I thought that something else was going to be said. Do you know why Ron lost his job? I thought it was going to be a little bit some things that need to stay under wraps. But what say you? Were they really trying to get after it here?
Well, why not? They're just a couple of guys trying to let off some steam and remind me like they some like small town Confederate apologists or something like that. Like that. Oh, he said, okay, so we got the producers in the back saying, informing us that he's 79 years old. He looked more like he's 98 or 99 years old. Because that's why I was thought like they look like the type of people who go to like those Confederate Union soldier reenactments and stuff like that. And he was like, say it, boy. Like, I'm calling you Yeller. I mean, this was just a good old celebrity death match to me. I don't really have much of anything to say about it other than I kind of enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
It reminds me of these TikTok little skits people do where a woman comes in and says to her, senior citizen father, "Daddy, the neighbor's doing this and that, and I need you to help me come beat him up." And Daddy, with his cane, tries to get out of the rocker and said, I'm rat-a-tat-tat upside his head. So listen, The cooler heads hopefully will prevail. I don't know if they're going to press
got
charges or not.
arrested.
You're the mayor, and you can't make it go away like some do in these small towns. No one tased, nobody presumably hurt. Mrs. Harden probably should mind her business though, and stay out of it. Let the men do what they're going to do, and don't spur it on. That's just my advice from what we see. Let's move on to this one. It's gross, really. The cops refused to render aid to a dying man because the shift was ending. Really? You're going to clock right out in the middle of a dire incident. Disturbing body cam footage obtained by First Alert 4 caught the moments two Missouri police officers found a suicide victim. They were called to help and left him right there as he lay dying because they were nearing the end of their work shift. Look at the body cam footage.
Somebody right there. What a guy. You rolling? Nah, he ain't dead. He alive. Boy. Oh, nah, his nah, his dead. That's all brain.
Yeah. He shoot himself in the head?
I don't know. We better take this then.
We ain't taking this shit. I got 30 minutes. Let's cruise around and come back. We gonna find this. We gonna be like,
Imagine you're laying there dying in despair, and this is what you're hearing. And then they take off as if they're not there to assist, help out in a situation. The body cam footage obtained by First Alert 4 shows former St. Louis Metropolitan Police Officer Austin Frazier and Ty Warren responding to a 911 call placed by 29-year-old Urian Rodriguez Rivera, who told dispatchers he planned to kill himself. Frazier and Warren arrived at a park at 6:26 p.m. where they found Rodriguez Rivera beneath a tree, suffering from a gunshot wound to the head. Rodriguez Rivera is still alive, breathing at this point when the officers come upon him. Atlanta Black Star filling in the details. Both officers are seen on Warren's body cam video standing over Rodriguez Rivera as they start discussing his transport to the hospital. We need to take this mother effer. Then Warren says that to Frazier. We aren't taking this blank. Frazier responds, I get off in 30 minutes. Let's cruise around and come back. No empathy. Only the best people. Men in blue. After Frazier suggests they leave, the pair walk off and laugh. They laugh without rendering aid to the dying man. There are other officers. They're going to find this expletive. We're going to be like, oh, expletive, you found him, Frazier is heard saying. So they'll play it off. They'll pretend that they couldn't locate the person who was dying and in need of help. 8 minutes later, 6:34 p.m., they return to the scene just before a third officer arrives to search for Rodriguez Rivera. Body cam footage shows them joining that officer's search, appearing to look for Rodriguez Rivera as if they hadn't found him earlier. So now they're acting. They're putting their best thespian foots forward. Once the third officer finds the victim, he calls dispatch for backup and emergency medical services. Rodriguez Rivera is still breathing. More officers arrive, tape off the area, render aid to Rodriguez Rivera, one of whom says his pulse is super weak. 6:38 p.m. Frazier and Warren leave the active scene, which doesn't go unnoticed by their colleagues. One officer's body cam video shows the pair walking back to their cruiser and driving off. You know what's effed up? Warren and Frazier just left, one of the officers says in body cam audio. Why? Asked the other. I don't know, he replies. Another cop is heard saying on body cam video that he was going to out the blank out of Frazier for leaving, telling an officer, "You can't just leave." EMS arrived at the park at 6:53 p.m., rushed Rodriguez Rivera to the hospital, where he died a day later. His transport to the hospital took place nearly 30 minutes after Frazier and Warren first arrived at the park and found him. It's disgusting, really disgusting. Former St. Louis Police Chief Tim Fitch said, "You got to wonder if they would have done something right then and there. Could he have survived?" I think it's just pure laziness is what it is. St. Louis Metropolitan Police administrators discovered the body cam footage showing Warren's and Frazier's actions during a routine review of the department's recordings. When confronted about the incident, Warren told police officials he made a dumb mistake. Dumb part, I agree with. Mistake, it is not. Willful misconduct. And succumbed to pressure from Frazier. Oh, so now you're gonna blame your boy too. So you're just biggest coward. Both officers were fired. Thank you. Now, so let's start with the back end, Jackson. It's the last part that gives me some hope. They reviewed the body cam footage. The police reviewed the footage, and they actually turned it in and said something. These two fired. And Tim Fitch, the former police chief who I covered at my time at Channel 4, said, "No excuse, laziness." But I disagree with that. It's more than that. They're calling him expletives, standing over him, doing nothing. Not only is it no empathy, I don't believe they saw Mr. Rodriguez Rivera as a human being. I think they saw this brown man laying in a pool of blood and desperation. And they, remember, laughed as they walked away. They made jokes about what their colleagues would find. What say you?
I think this really highlights the punitive culture that exists within law enforcement. Because as you pointed out, this goes beyond laziness. If you see somebody dying in a park somewhere, particularly if your job is to protect and serve, it will just kind of be a part of your general humanity to call an ambulance or call backup and try to help him out, or at least try to get it together, because there's a dying man in a park somewhere. What if somebody else sees him? So it's just it's just very negligible, but also reflects that a lot of police officers in these forces see people in these communities as vermin that kind of need to be dealt with,
Yeah.
or swept away, and instead of people, human beings that may just need some help or may need to be led somewhere else. Oftentimes you see police officers who are policing communities that they didn't grow up in, so they may not really have much love and concern. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to improve municipalities on a local level so that we can get more people from these communities policing them. Again, I don't know where these two men were from, but it is definitely good that they were fired, because I mean, if you don't care to call an ambulance, then what else are you going to neglect to do? How much corruption are you willing to be a part of? So it's just a really bad look overall.
And to the one who blamed his buddy, what a fool. Okay.
Yeah.
Here you had two people acting in cahoots. There's not that much peer pressure in the world, right? I can't imagine us being partners and stumbling upon this scene. And if I had some kind of idiot lack of empathy moment, you would go along with it. You'd already be rendering aid. You might not even see me skippity-doo-dah in the other direction. You'd be doing your job. So this tells me there's a larger issue here, Jackson. Just so happen these two losers are on the same shift. They're partners. They've been doing stuff like this. That's my view, because I just don't see how this could happen. But I think you're right about something else. People from the community policing, get out of the car, be from here, know people by their name. You cannot legislate empathy, decency. They don't need more training. They don't need more rules. Even their colleagues showed up and said, these people are fools. And it was a distraction, frankly, their conduct. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a different case than somebody getting shot and killed. I think this kind of just demonstrates even more than something like that. Some because we're so desensitized to it, but also there's those arguments of people who don't want to consider systemic racism. So they're like, oh, well, these people must have deserved to get shot because they were running, or maybe they had a gun.
Yep.
But this just demonstrates general lack of empathy and general lack of concern. So I think that something like this may do, well, I don't know about a better job, but I think maybe could speak to audiences who don't want to see that there's a lot of issues with law enforcement in this country.
Yeah. And I'll say this, mental health issues, heightened alert, that's real. And so I also think they should bias in this case against somebody who was in crisis. I don't know what the deal was with Mr. Rodriguez Rivera, now departed, but he needed help and compassion, and he didn't get it. So much more to come. They shouldn't just be fired, though. There needs to be some kind of charge here, because they actually, if you're in the public and you walk by someone, it's gross, but you're right, I guess. Some jurisdictions it's not. Here, this was their duty, and they failed to do anything except the opposite. Now, this has happened to a lot of Black people, believe it or not. In fact, in the pre-show, we were kind of just remarking about this next story. It's happened to all of us. Racist woman refuses to speak to receptionist because of her race. And I told Jackson and our crack team, our producers behind the scenes, don't speak to me. I'll save the words for somebody else. You only have so many words in a day, I'll save them. But the video shows the moment a white patient shamelessly says, sorry, I don't listen to Black people, in front of Black receptionists at a doctor's office in Indiana. You're there for some kind of treatment or a relative, aren't you? And this is how you want to start off? Okay. This is what you want to do. Even though the racist patient is heard spouting her refusal to listen to Black people, the one time the woman behind the camera noted that she voiced that bigoted view multiple times in the office. Once she heard the patient call the receptionist the N-word, well, that's when she began recording the interaction. Some people are so dumb, Jackson, that even when they're coming someplace for help, a receptionist can hurt or help you. It's just like, maybe this is trivial, but I'll say it anyway. You show up, there's the velvet rope at the club, right? And you've been to the club, VIP, right? The doorman can help or hurt you. When I was in D.C., okay, young student at Georgetown, you smile and me and my girls get in, okay? You be nice to the doorman. This idiot racist, it's a Karen, may not be part of the Karen, but I need to play it for you so you could see. I described it, but you have to see and hear for yourself. Watch.
I don't think we have a point of view. I'm sorry, I don't listen to Black people. We don't allow, one moment. Please come this way. Okay. We don't talk to people that way. Everyone, we don't accept that kind of talk here.
Oh, well, I need to be seen by my doctor.
Who's your doctor?
Bridget.
Okay.
And what's your I guess the doctor's not a person of color. Y'all need to see, the doctor's probably white. It would be funny if they sent Isaiah Washington, who played a Black doctor, out there. Well, he'll take care of you. What do you make of it? Do you know how much energy it takes to behave this way? It takes a lot of energy. Okay. So what do you do here?
She got out the shower one morning, slipped and hit her head and thought it was 1963. She woke up in the wrong decade. No, but I mean, it's unfortunate because this would disrupt just the natural flow in an office, especially you got other people waiting because she don't want to just talk to a receptionist to get along with their stuff. It's drawing attention and things. Obviously, life would carry on. It's silly. This is one of those things that you could kind of laugh in her face about, but it's just, I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know what year you think it is, but, racism kind of evolves and adapts. But we are moving backwards, because the racism in the right wing for a little bit was a tad bit more sophisticated. You know, they moved into, you know, talking about programs instead of people of color in particular. But now we just backtracking. So I guess, you know, she's like, screw it. We in the Trump era still, so I might as well just bring it old school.
Yeah. And it strikes me that, as disgusting as it was, it didn't really freak everyone out, because this is what we're used to, right?
Yeah.
Now, and nobody decided to, you know, get all crunk with it. Had it been me, if she catch me on the right day, I would have said, oh, no problem. Can you go wait in the whites only reception area, and we'll get you that STD test immediately. Thank you, ma'am. That's what you say. You say very loud. We'll be right with you for your sexually transmitted disease test, and we'll get you the help you need. All right? And then you put out the sign saying lunchtime.
Say it over the microphone.
This is what you do. This is indisputable. Dr. Ritchie has the day off, so we're kind of just hanging out, trying to do what we do here. Jackson White, Politics and Paper, is our special guest co-host today. Much more to come.
The rest of the news media says you should not fight for positive change. If you do, you're not really a reporter or a journalist, because reporters and journalists don't care what happens. I don't agree. That's not written anywhere. That's not a law. It's just a rule that they invented so that reporters didn't actually challenge the people that are in power. Well, we don't agree with that. We think we should challenge the people in power, that actually makes you a better journalist, not a worse one.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. Here at TYT, we understand this. That's why we're not gonna price gouge you or use inflation as an excuse to raise our prices. A TYT membership is not your typical subscription, but basic membership is still just $4.99. So what do you get for that price? For starters, you're getting exclusive programming, unique, exclusive designs from Shop TYT, access to a members-only chat, giveaways, emojis, and so many other amazing perks. But most importantly, you're helping to make an impact. As a TYT member, you not only help us do the shows every day, but you drive real positive change in the process. In 2017, we helped to start Justice Democrats right here on TYT. That's a group that got a dozen progressives elected into Congress. That's amazing, you did that. Your support also funds TYT's very own investigative reporting. Just recently, our reporters exposed the Fellowship Foundation and pressured lawmakers into boycotting that bigoted event. Isn't that amazing? We raised over $30,000 for Jackson, Mississippi, and delivered clean water to thousands of people in need. Our petitions, polls, and community of activists help keep the corruption of Washington in check. That's the impact of what just $4.99 a month from our members can do. And we're just getting started. Positive change doesn't occur overnight, but with your contribution, we can make it happen together.
I got pulled in. They told me, hey, listen, Cenk, we're insiders. We are the establishment. People in Washington tell me that they're concerned about your tone. We think that there's a better role for you, and it's not in 6 o'clock. The problem with the mainstream media is they're desperate to get access. They don't challenge the government. They don't challenge power. We're supposed to challenge the government. That's the role of the media.
Components that corrupt our politicians, I think, also corrupt mainstream media. It's really difficult for cable outlets to talk about things like income inequality, wealth inequality, when the advertisers that are funding their shows are the same corporations that want to ensure that the same system continues. People watch digital media or new media, they get a completely different message. They focus on the issues that matter or resonate more with the constituency. We need to know one thing. Is the corporate media incompetent?
Corporate media, I can't hear you. Establishment press, where are you? I can't hear you. But the media's position I am clear on. Everything is pro-war, so everything is just framed that way. In this case, I mean, war is inevitable, right? I mean, the defense contractors should get a couple more $1 trillion.
You ready for the stunning results? Only 6% of people say they have a great deal of confidence in the press. Wakey, wakey, okay? Progressives don't like the media either. You know why? It's the corporate media. Corporate media sounds like a conspiracy. Wait. Who owns you? Multi-billion-dollar corporations, public corporations. The idea that we're corporate media because corporations own us. Yeah, that's how it works.
We found the perfect person to lead the Army, Allison Hartson.
The establishment media works hand in glove with our corporate legislators, and our corporate legislators work hand in glove with the corporation. And we're going to make it so that it's a decentralized force throughout the country so that we can quickly identify stories, quickly identify troll farms, and go in and neutralize the enemy, and then start building responsible media throughout the country and on every platform available.
Welcome back to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Doc has the day off today. Jackson White is in as our special guest co-host. Jackson, what are you working on?
Well, I've been pretty consistent. I still got politics and paper going on with YouTube, but with the turn of the year, I did mention that I'm looking to get more involved in St. Louis politics. So I'll be showcasing a lot of that as I do make that happen. And I've been diverging off into kind of talking about movies and other cool stuff. So this year I'm really focused on just expanding my network and taking advantage of what I've done thus far. And I'm pretty excited about it.
Diversity is the key. I'd like to see you play an action figure. I mean, I know you're probably talking about
maybe one day, you know what I'm saying? We got DC's on the come up, you know, Marvel, they kind of gassing out a little bit. DC's on the come up. So maybe James Gunn will want me to play some villain with long hair or something. We'll see.
And go by your moniker, Snacks in action.
Right, we'll see what's up.
All right, well, let's get to some of your comments if we can real quick. TYT members first. Andrew Martinez says this about the cops who stumbled upon a dying man and refused to render aid. Not just laziness, lack of humanity, morality, and decency. The incident happened in St. Louis. K8 Dragon says, Trump should have been in LA raking the leaves. Instead, he's saying all kinds of dumb stuff about people who are facing just devastating fires out there. And as of last check, 5 dead. And you're right. He should have been raking the leaves, making sure there wasn't so much brush on the ground, and helping out instead of being the menace that he loves to be. YouTube, we'll get to more of your comments here. Tanya Ladmiralt says, hello, Sharon and Jackson. Hello, Tanya.
What's up?
Yeah, Scorpius Cores. That's disgusting. Why are they even in the police if they're not there to help the community? Good question. To eat donuts, I guess, and go on a lunch break. Ariane Henson, mofos calling an ambulance to go to the hospital was going to make them late for dinner. Exactly. And RJ Network, just horrible. It is, indeed. Twitch, let's get there quickly. Kick her out of the practice about that racist woman who refused to speak to the black receptionist. Really racist couple there. Kick her out of the practice, indeed. And about the two members of the local jurisdiction, the mayor and the councilman who were fighting, instigated by one of their wives. Was it Cecil's wife, Mayor Cecil Hardin? I believe it was Mrs. Hardin.
I think it was. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, nightmare.
He said, "Say it, boy."
That's right. It says perfectly. Karen versus Karen. Sometimes we don't have time to sort it out. We just declare it. Let's call it. There you go. And what was the site we used to go to all the time, Jackson? Hip Hop World Star.
World Star Hip Hop.
Yeah, put it on there. Okay. All right. Now, speaking of Karen versus Karen, sometimes it's not so clear. Sometimes it's difficult with the information we have. We have a great snapshot of what went down, but we don't have everything. So that's why Nightmare 316 said Karen versus Karen. But in this case, I think it'll become increasingly clear. I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Fucking fake ass.
Trash.
Yeah, what are you?
You're just trash.
Why trying to act like white?
I'm not no
Blah, 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 blah.
Paisa. We're
What are-
freaking born and raised
You're
here.
a Paisa, look at the file on your forehead.
Yeah, we're Tex-Mex. The border
Tex-Mex.
crossed us. You're the
Take care, you
You're the
dumbass.
fucking wetback.
And I am, man.
Yeah,
I
you're
am.
the fucking
I am.
wetback.
So what?
You're the
I am
wetback.
100%
That's
Mexican.
So that
and
means, no, you
look at
don't.
you.
No puedes ser
Ah,
vuelta.
¿ves, pendejo? No sabes
puedes
hablar
ser
español.
vuelta,
No sabes hablar
pendejo.
español, pendejo.
No, ¿qué pasó?
¿Qué?
Pick
paso.
me, please pick me.
Que paso
me,
was what I heard at the end.
please.
This is foolishness and bigotry at its finest. A bigot male Karen belittles a fellow Latino. Why would he do that? Well, there's this hierarchy with some in certain communities, certain races. Oh, I passes this. I was born here, so I'm up here. You know, it's why I think Jackson people were some dumbfounded when they looked at people who were voting in the election, and some who even their immigration status was in question were saying, well, I agree with Trump, kick them all out. 10 million people out now.
White supremacy.
Right. Aren't you? What about your grandmother and this and that? Well, there's this thing where you want to assimilate. You want to be part of something so badly that you will kick someone who's more like you just because. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, the colonialism really did damage to the human psyche just in this whole last, like 500 plus year era that we've been in. Inherent knowledge and realization of what being Black means in this system and how people are constantly running away from being associated with that. You know, when the Irish first came over here because of the potato famine, they weren't initially accepted into white America. When the Italians first came over here because of war, they weren't initially accepted into white America. Eventually, they have assimilated. But these whiteness is an idea. It's really not necessarily about the color of your skin or your pigmentation. It's a status symbol. And so, when you see the increased numbers of Latinos moving to the right, obviously, yeah, sure, you have working class issues mixed in there. But in the Latino community, as we just saw, especially I was living up in New York for 8 years. You see that heavy in the Dominicans who, a lot, they're just Black people that speak Spanish. And I know Black, I know Black, I know Black. Like they run away from that so hard because, again, of what it has historically meant to be Black. You're a second class citizen. So that's all this really is. Again, there's a lot of other ways to explain it, but it's really not much point in overcomplicating white supremacy and whiteness. It still has a lot of power over the way human beings think and believe about the world.
Yeah, it's just so sick, though, because the man who identified as Tex-Mex and said he was born here, honestly, you could feel it, believe that that made him better, a leg up, could look down upon. It's like the light-skinned versus dark-skinned or passing type of disgusting scenario. That's really what I felt from him. So it's just sick. And so is this next one. Again, we mentioned that there are people who are devastated. You see the pictures. They've lost everything. I mean, the fires in Los Angeles are reaching places where people never thought they would approach. Yet here we are, and you're hearing words like 0% contain, water pressure down. It's a real fight, and people have lost their lives. So what does Scott Jennings have to say about this? Listen.
Some interest in the fire departments and the firefighters in California. And the interest was that there were too many white men who were firefighters, and we need to have a program in California to make sure we don't have enough white men as firefighters.
The most educated demographic in this country right now is Black women. We are looking at qualifications. What diversity, equity, and inclusion has always been about is saying, you know what? Open this up. Don't just look at the white men. Open it up and recognize that other people can be qualified. And the fact that we want to, at a time when people are dying, decide that a country of immigrants is failing or people are dying because the same very people that built this country, because the last time I checked, y'all didn't say that anything was wrong with the White House. And I can promise you, it was my ancestors that built the White House. So listen, if we have been good enough to build this country, we are good enough to serve. Stop trying to act as if only white men are the ones that are capable.
The main interest in the fire department lately has been in DEI programming and budget cuts, and now we have this massive...
It's a laugher. It's did Chappelle's show write it? Scott Jennings, as Representative Jasmine Crockett clocked his tea, looked like a fool. Red ears, red-faced. Perhaps CNN is doing DEI when they put him on the air. The need for more bigoted white men. I think there's plenty on the air already, but perhaps they're saying there should be a quota. We need one more. And so here comes Scott. When breaking down the Biden administration's response to the wildfire, Laura Ingram said this.
Deb Haaland, we got to call her out too, because she's the Interior Secretary, another DEI hire of the Biden administration. I'm sure she's a lovely person. She is completely incompetent.
I took a sip of my chai just to get through this one. That's what I was reaching for. Took the last sip of my chai so I could quench myself and get ready for Laura Ingram. A fool. This is the real affirmative action in America, folks. What on earth are you babbling about? There are people who are dying. There are homes that are wiped out. And this is where we're going with this. Black conservative Leo Terrell. Oh, God, I remember him. About 20 years since I told him off. Also echoed the DEI narrative.
This state has been hijacked by the extreme left. Remember, Karen Bass is the socialist mayor who said Castro's a great guy. They focus on denying your responsibility by yelling out climate change. I heard Karen Bass right before the show. It's climate change. It's climate change. That's a lie. It's poor management on the part of the Democrats. They do not look at fire prevention, what you said, basic forestry as a priority. It's climate change. It's EV mandates. It's preventing oil drilling. It's DEI, that DEI, which is so sickening. What does DEI have to do with putting out fires? But you got a city fire chief who thinks DEI is the #1 issue. It's insulting. And you know what? I blame the voters and I blame the media here.
Well, them tap dancing shoes is loud. I just heard so much clicking and clacking. Why?
They still do minstrel shows in LA.
Oh,
you know, I won't say who, but it's hard to listen to people who shout nonsense as if they're at a rally, McClan rally, let's just say that. I remember a loudmouth radio guy who happened to be in LA who wanted to date me. And I said, well, you yell too much and spittle comes out. You're a close talker, and I'm not interested. So there's that little story, but I didn't say who. Finally, here's what, is he going to have the smirk again like he usually has most nights? Jesse Waters had to say.
So who else is running things? This right here, ladies and gentlemen, this is the leadership of the LA Fire Department. I sure hope they know what they're doing. So while her department was sending equipment to Ukraine, the chief was marching in pride parades, which is fine. Have all the pride you want, but you better make sure you're ready to do your job when it counts.
Do you not know that if I were his boss, I could call him in the office and say that to him? And and he would not be ready to do his job when it counts. If the prompter goes down, do you think Jesse Waters is going to be able to complete the show? No. Do you think he has any real information stored up here? No. Has he read anything? Has he sampled anything before the show?
No.
He walked into makeup, got some powder on his face, probably made some disparaging remarks or said something sexist. This is my opinion. But there's no value there. In fact, if we put up the pictures of these four bumblers, okay, you're going to crop Jesse out. That's fine. We remember what his face looks like. If we put them all in a house and filmed it, would it be a good reality show? And let's just see. I don't know. It might be boring. We've heard it all before. Perhaps these folks don't realize, was that 7 Strangers in a House? That's a long time ago, MTV. Perhaps these people don't realize Los Angeles Fire Department is a leader and a model to fire departments around the world. The department's ability to develop new techniques and equipment to fight fires of all kinds has benefited not only the residents they serve, but the fire service in general, both nationally and internationally. The pay's not bad either. This is how they attract the best. Fire departments around the country seek training from the Los Angeles Fire Department due to their reputation, and I might say experience. They have a lot of experience in this area, and yet you want to question their competency because you're racist. Trump to withhold aid to California, that's a question. Something he's threatened before. Remember when he occupied 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? Trump put the blame on President Joe Biden and Governor Gavin Newsom in a broad political attack aimed at everything from environmental protections for Delta smelt, which Trump described Wednesday as a worthless fish, to Biden's handling of disaster aid. Could be a preview of his second term, during which Trump has pledged to withhold wildfire aid from California unless Newsom gives in to his policy demands. E&E News with that preview. As California faces intense wildfire seasons, Republicans like Representative Byron Donalds are criticizing the state's environmental policies while downplaying the role of climate change and fossil fuel emissions. Does he want to take us back to the Jim Crow policies, Byron?
That's when the families were together.
The families were together.
Yeah, that's when the black family was together.
Yes.
When we couldn't do anything in society. That's when,
time of their lives. Time of their lives.
Right.
While Donalds and others attribute fires to insufficient forest management, scientists highlight how fossil fuel-driven climate change exacerbates conditions that fuel wildfires. Fossil fuel companies, significant donors to these politicians, are linked to nearly 20 million acres of forest lost in North America. How can you ignore that? Details from The Independent. Climate change is intensifying California's droughts, high temperatures, atmospheric rivers, which foster conditions that lead to larger and more frequent fires. Despite Republican calls for more forest clearing, California already allocates billions to wildfire prevention, including prescribed burns, vegetation management. State's wildfires are escalating even as preventative measures increase, underscoring the limits of local actions against broader climate impacts. They think you just should have gone in and swept up. Do you realize that, honestly, California's had more rain this year? More vegetation has grown. It's hard to keep up. There are other issues, though, that led to this. And I know that a lot of people who speak about DEI as the problem aren't particularly prone to following science, but it would help in this case. It would help. Meanwhile, one of California's largest insurers, State Farm. Is this the double check? And Jake from State Farm's company? It's Jake, right? Who sits courtside at the basketball games. I'm not saying it's his policy, but Jake, this is your brand. He didn't do double check. That was Aaron Rodgers, right? Discount double check. Is that it? State Farm, who, by the way, has made the majority of their political donations to Republicans. I have to write a note. Cancel State Farm. That will happen immediately. Announced last year that it would not renew 30,000 home insurance policies throughout the state, including at least hundreds in areas affected by the current wildfires. explaining that the move was meant to avert a financial failure that would detrimentally impact the entire market. Other insurance companies have taken similar action, leaving their customers scrambling to find coverage. So they're lying to you when they say financial failure. What they're doing, Jackson, is protecting the profit. They're protecting the profit. 30,000 homes that they said will no longer cover these areas. It's not going to break them, but it would impact probably just a little bit, and they're not going to go for it. They want more profit, not less. It would impact their profits. This is the kind of disgustingness that we're dealing with now in the middle of a crisis that we should come together. We should come together. Laura Ingram, Scott Jennings, Leo Terrell. I don't want to date myself. I was going to, well, anyway, and Jesse Waters. What motivates them other than the grift?
Obviously just inherent racism and also just kind of laziness, because that's all they ever say. So it's just regurgitating the same old points that they always talk. So even if they're not reflexively just like, oh God, there's too many black people in corporate America, then it's just another Tuesday where by muscle memory they're complaining about DEI. But our federal government, just the country itself is devolving. We're devolving. 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, we undid Roe v. Wade for no real good reason, which is already having drastic consequences for babies being carried to term that have really bad deformities and they don't survive. It's really rampant and bad in Texas. Women who are being turned away from hospitals who are bleeding to death and they got to go out in their cars. We got this mass movement of mass deportations. Let's get them all over here. Let's get them out. These things are just growing in this country. And the idea that Republicans could handle California better is ridiculous, because Republicans, one, that fundamentally they don't believe in the government. So it's always been mind-blowing to me when I first started paying attention to politics, like, why are any of these people in government if they don't believe in it? And then they don't want to invest in infrastructure. You Leo Terrell screaming, talking about forest management. You got to spend money on that type of stuff. And Republicans don't want to do that. They don't want to fix the infrastructure systems. They don't want to do anything about our education system, with our masses of people who can barely read and don't understand what's going on in the world. They don't do nothing about that. And they just talk about DEI this, DEI that. And I mean, it's just like, where do you even start with these people? Where do we even go? Democrats, and really anybody on the left, not just Democrats, but anybody on the left in this country, we got to get involved. We got to mobilize. We got to do stuff in our local governments, or else this is just like the country's just going to completely dissolve and fall apart. I mean, California's on fire. They DEI, that's what's the focus. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
All they care about is that the price of their good wine will go up. Leo Terrell is out there doing his minstrel show. The others are auditioning since they are still on the outskirts of Trump's administration. Scott Jennings. I mean, these are the Republican talking points. They took it right from the Republican Party. I've always believed and frankly known that, that Fox is on that morning conference call with someone in the administration, and then they pump it out. They take it from morning to prime. Fox and Friends all the way through Jesse Waters and beyond. Laura? It's sick, and it's sad to me. You're right. People do have to get involved, because in these local jurisdictions, state legislator here in Georgia, I beg to differ on one thing you said. You said they don't want to do anything. What are they going to do about the education? Well, they do want to do something. They want to privatize it and make money. They want to take all the money and leave people without a shot. They want people to stay ignorant, and they want to take all the money out of the coffers. Last word to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just this country has, a serious chance of breaking up. If I mean, that may sound hyperbolic, but it's really not. America is massive. This is a huge place. 50 state governments, packed into one federal umbrella, and there's so much partisan divide. You know, like, I'm not talking about like, oh, there's going to be a civil war tomorrow, but this country can't sustain itself the way that it's going. It just can't. Like, that's really what we're dealing with. And we got to get it together.
Yeah, I know that the 1%ers, or maybe they're half percenters now, they're just consuming all the wealth and leaving the rest of us with nothing, believe that they've got this thing and they can be dictators. But that's not the way people, human nature, the world works. At some point, the arc, it changes. And there's a pivot, and people say, you know what, I don't have, my grandmother always said, you got to leave the opposition with something to lose. If they don't have anything to lose, you better watch out. You better watch out. Don't take everything, or you'll see what kind of courage people can stomach. This is Indisputable. Sharon Reed alongside Jackson White, our special guest co-host today. Dr. Richie has earned the day off. Much more to come.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT.
That 300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the U.S. population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day. We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone. 20 billion views.
Damn.
All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Billy B. Taylor. What do you know? Billy says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me, or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Napier writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Jenkins Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
All right, let me do a little quick plug here. It's not even a plug, I'm bragging, okay? I'm bragging, watch me. We have a channel on YouTube, a whole channel devoted just to the Young Turks. It's badass, right? Wow, man.
I can see the voice.
You guys are rock stars.
Unbelievable. Senator Sanders, welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Man, you guys are amazing. We gave you what you wanted. Okay. Speaking of shirts.
I have a surprise.
You reached a lot of people. You are the Young Turks. And we have spread that progressive message wide and far. Let's keep it going.
Here's what we do. We go beyond the headline. We are willing to engage in transparent conversations with those who do not think like me. We also make sure that you know what's happening not only nationally, but in your local area. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's fantastic. It's a story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read.
Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living.
Welcome back to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Doc has the day off. Jackson White is here. Politics and paper fame, activist, community organizer. All those great things we love about you, Jackson. Let's get to some comments. TYT members first. Lynn, I always love reading Lynn's comments. Scott Jennings, who believes that the issue out in Los Angeles, the area there, is a DEI issue, as people are fighting for everything, including their lives. Scott Jennings makes me nauseous. I've never heard him say anything that could be perceived as intelligent or thoughtful. You know, once again, I'll co-sign on that. If somebody wants to present us with something he said that's intelligent, we'll hear you at some point. Might not get it in this show, but we'll listen. The political Gemini. Ironically, Byron Donalds is from a state that just recently got rocked by 2 major hurricanes back to back. How quickly they forget. The political Gemini. Deck says prison inmates have been fighting fires in California for decades before DEI was even a thing. I guess that those well-qualified white firefighters weren't as good as they would have us all believe. Forced labor in some areas of the country. And Lynn says this, and yeah, Trump handled, whoops, lost Lynn's comment. Trump handled natural disasters so well during his presidential term, COVID, hurricanes, floods, etc. Well, yeah, okay. Glad we got that one in.
Nuke the hurricanes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And inject the bleach, was it, or did he want us to drink it?
Inject it.
Dave Morris has this to say, YouTube. Jackson was very entertaining on TDR. What did you say on TDR? Do you remember, Jackson?
I remember in particular, me and John just usually do well together.
Okay.
I definitely want to be on there a bit more often.
Well, good.
But yeah, it was a good show.
Well, we love it. Hogwarts Legacy, Jackson.
Oh
Zara
yeah. I've been
Thora
playing
says.
that. I've been playing that game. It's a really good one. I can't stop playing it.
Yeah. And let's give you another one. Well, Tony, we read that one. Let's see. I once had a teacher that was torpedoed by a police car that was crossing a red light. Both cars totaled. Police had to be cut free. Why police were on late for coffee at the station. Wow, late night coffee run. Sorte Snog, Mr. Stay-at-Home Dragon, had that to say. We'll move on now. heartbreaking. There's certain things you don't forget, even if you're a very small child, and I have to believe this is one of them. Here's a video of an incident where a black father's 5-year-old son was frisked by police during a traffic stop.
Is that a selfie stick? Yeah, she had to go 360. Okay. Come on, man. Yeah, I didn't give you nothing, right? Oh my gosh. We just had this a traffic stop? Yeah. How is this a traffic stop? This is ridiculous, bro. What kind of traffic stop is this? You don't have to yell at Beto, come here, Beto. Give me my nephew, man. You want to call it? What's his name? I'm gonna take my shoes off.
This is Ohio. Could have happened anywhere, I guess, but this is Ohio. Brandon Wilson, black father, outraged after Ohio cops pull him over for an expired tag, tinted windows, before ordering his family out of the car, searching through the pockets of his 5-year-old son while the boy's hands were raised. Now, you get a ticket. Are your tags expired? You get a ticket. Window tint. I was pulled over for that. I had this G-Wagon one time, and the tint was, that's the way I bought it. I didn't change nothing. I just said, oh, sorry. Each time I'd say, oh, sorry. And then I'd roll out, okay? But I, thankfully, was allowed to roll out. This was in Ohio. Incident took place on December 26 when Brandon Wilson said he drove across the street from his home in Parma. I should have known, Parma. If you know anything about Ohio, Cleveland, Metro Cleveland area, Parma, oh my goodness. Just look it up if you want to grab yourself a glass of your favorite substance and just enjoy the show. He goes across the street from his home in Parma to his mother's home and was pulled over by police because his license tag had expired in September 2024. Short video was recorded by Wilson's brother showing the cops frisking both father and son. Dad didn't give you nothing, right? One of the cops can be heard asking the boy. But the cops found nothing after their invasive search, so Wilson was cited for the expired tag and tinted windows and allowed to leave. And his little boy, too, I suppose, escaped with this trauma. Parma police issued the following statement. Our decision to conduct this search was influenced by the increasing prevalence of tragic incidents where children have been harmed or killed after accidentally coming into contact with dangerous substances. I'm going to read the rest, but I have to ask for a friend what fool wrote that. And can the ACLU educate them? Wow. In Ohio and across the nation, there have been cases where children have overdosed on drugs that were negligently left within their reach. This is a risk our officers work to prevent. In this case, our review process has confirmed that the officer acted reasonably, professionally, and with the child's safety as a primary concern. You're a lie. The child's safety is in question. He's mentally suffered trauma due to this. You're never going to forget it. Parma police said they were only doing it for the child's safety, but the boy's father said they had no probable cause to search his car, much less his little boy, who he said remained shaken by the experience. See? He's reenacting it with his toys. That's not cool, the boy's father, Brandon Wilson, told KNOP News. They could have went about it a whole different way. The officers didn't have to touch him. I don't care what y'all do to me. Well, we do. We don't want your child to see what happened to you either, because it was wrong. Parma police claim they had probable cause to search the car and its occupants because a police dog alerted them to the presence of drugs inside the car. Can we put the dog under oath? Oh, yeah, we'll never be able to ask the dog, will we? And they're banking on that. Turned out to be false, though, because police found no drugs in the car. Several studies over the years indicate that police dogs often provide false alerts of drugs in vehicles, getting it wrong anywhere from 50% of the time to 85% of the time. Other studies indicate police dogs are acting on racial bias, the bias of their police handlers, considering Black and Latino drivers can be anywhere from 2.5 times to 4 times as likely to see their car consensually search for drugs during traffic stops than white drivers, even though white drivers are more likely to have illegal drugs in their cars. I wonder what Scott Jennings would have to say about this one. Specifically, white motorists were 49% more likely than Black motorists, 56% more likely than Hispanic motorists. Our friends at Atlanta Black Star with some of the details here. Police also claim his tinted windows were too dark, but another study indicated Black people made up 75% of traffic stops in Ohio for illegal tints, demonstrating a clear racial bias during these traffic stops. So despite the excuses provided by the Parma Police Department to justify the search, they will likely be sued by the Black family whose rights they violated. That's according to a statement issued by the Elk Hatib Law Office in Cleveland. And I say go for it. And you saw the Parma Police Department in that little silly statement, Jackson, that they issued. It's just tomfoolery, okay? So every time you make a simple traffic stop, somebody goes through a stop sign or doesn't come to a full stop, you're searching them and their child, their 5-year-old, their kindergartner? Of course you're not. Okay, I don't even know if this was a legal stop. Perhaps, okay, the tag, give them that. But I know they seem to be laying in wait often when it's Black and brown people. The disregard for the dignity of a Black father and the mental health and safety of his son, it just makes me so just furious about it. They don't give a damn, do they?
No, and unfortunately, we have to talk about these types of instances over and over and over again because they happen over and over and over again. And unfortunately, there's a huge swath of the country that just doesn't want to hear it. And in some ways, they have to know that it's true because of how angry they get when you talk about it. But at the end of the day, at best, at absolute best, they're just desperate to meet their quotas. But that's still not a good excuse. There's really no good excuse to be frisking a 5-year-old. I mean, like, there's so much wrong with that. They don't understand what's going on. And even if a 5-year-old had something, like, do that. I mean, like, what, does he have a gun in his pocket? You would be able to see that. You know what I mean? Like, you could see that protruding. If he had drugs, like, he doesn't know what's going on. He's 5 years old. So, this is just cruel and unusual punishment, really. And like you pointed out, this child's going to remember this, and he's not really going to be able to make sense of it. And hopefully he doesn't have to deal with stuff like this, but he probably will.
It's sick. And the reason I said the dignity of a Black man is because he's helpless. And that's something that Black fathers have known since the beginning of time in this country and other places around the world. Nothing we can do about it. While you humiliate us in front of our families, in front of our children, in front of our significant others, the women in our lives. It's sick. And the fact that this statement was put out that we're concerned about children, which absolute lie. Let's give you an update now on this one. A cop finally fired, finally, we say, for fatally hitting a woman with his car. And before we get into the update here, we need to remind you of how one of this cop's co-workers reacted to him killing a woman.
Went up on the hood, hit the windshield, then when he hit the brakes, flew off the car. But she is dead. No, it's a regular person. Yeah. Yeah, just write a check. Just, yeah, $11,000. She was 26 anyway. She had limited value.
I'm so honored that we got to hear the truth. 26-year-old woman dead, brutally killed. An officer behind the wheel. A 26-year-old woman who had to have people who loved her and counted on her and saw promise in her. Sick. Bad apples. Yeah, right. Kevin Dave struck and killed 23-year-old grad student Janavi Kandala while driving 74 miles per hour in a 25-mile-per-hour street. Dave, who authorities say was responding to a report of an overdose. According to the King County Prosecutor's Office, Dave did have on his emergency lights and siren. Well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. It's hard to believe people. Even prosecutor's office, they work closely with police. Maybe he did. But I'm not just going to take your word for it. I think we have the right to say that. The report also said Condola appeared to have run across the intersection as his vehicle was approaching. It also suggested the earbuds diminished her hearing. Condola was thrown over 100 feet, died later at the hospital. The route with the details on this one. The man in the video was Officer Daniel Arter, Vice President of the Seattle Police Officers Guild. Do you see what I'm talking about? In a leadership position. The Guild, they defend officers no matter what. Inadvertently left his body cam running after responding January 23rd to South Lake Union. Arter lost his job in July, per NBC's reporting. Now, Kevin Dave is also out of a job. Originally, Dave was only handed a fine of $5,000 for negligent driving. Prosecutor's office declined to charge him. Of course they did. However, in an email obtained by NBC News, Interim Police Chief Sue Rahr said she decided to fire Dave after finding he violated department policy. Can you just fire him for what you heard? It's some technicality she got him on, not the lack of empathy and laughing at a dying woman. Interim Chief Sue Rahr wrote in a statement, I believe the officer did not intend to hurt anyone that night. Well, if that's what makes you feel better, believe it. I only know what I heard. Who behaves that way? And that he was trying to get to a possible overdose victim as quickly as possible. Can we have the address? Can we hear that call that came in and know the timing of it? However, I cannot accept the tragic consequences of his dangerous driving. His positive intent does not mitigate the poor decision. There you go again. What are you talking about, his positive intent? Didn't we hear his real intent? Didn't we hear the audio where there's laughter and callousness and saying that $11,000 is all she's worth, limited value, age 26. Poor decision that caused the loss of a human life and brought discredit to the Seattle Police Department. Well, yeah, they did that. They also brought discredit to the human race, Jackson. This is just, I cannot imagine, and I don't want to complete the thought as a mother, how I would feel already without the most precious one in your life, and you have to listen to this filth. Money's not going to bring her back. Policy changes are not needed. Keep filth out of uniform. That's how you can keep people like this brilliant graduate student, age 26, alive. What say you?
Well, I mean, if she has limited value, then so does he, and so do all the rest of us. And I mean, what he said, she's only worth $11,000. Like, well, how much are you worth? Like 35,000. You're a police officer. You don't make a lot of money. I don't know how much you get paid, but it ain't that much. So, where you like, what are you even trying to insinuate? I mean, honestly, that was one of the most callous things I've ever heard in regards to something like this. Like, he genuinely enjoyed the fact that he killed somebody. And it was a woman, which kind of just, I mean, obviously, no matter who he would have ran over, it would have been terrible, but it kind of just demonstrates the layers of his lack of empathy. And unfortunately, he'll probably get another job in a county somewhere else, not too far from there, or maybe in another state away, because he knows how to do the job and you don't have to train him as much. But I mean, and then for that lady to say that, I don't think that he meant any harm that night. Well, he certainly is happy that he committed harm. I mean, somebody's life is over because you ran over them with your car, and you're like, like that's and again, when you said bad apples, no, this is a system that attracts people like this. You know, you're always going to be able to say, well, not everyone's like that. Of course, not everyone's like that, but it's still nonetheless, there's too many people like that in the system, because that's what the system encourages, is people who lack empathy, who aren't going to think very much about anything. And that's, you know, that's indicative through the fact that if you test too high in a lot of these municipalities, they won't let you be a part of the force because they don't want people to think about stuff like that. So, you know, it's really a systemic issue, and that was just really sick to see.
You know, it was just so sick, so callous, and I'd like to see the Seattle Police Department pay. I am not at all impressed by the interim chief's statement, Chief Rahr. Horrible. Despite his good intentions, what the hell are you talking about? I don't know if this man has one redeeming quality, because I don't know people who are in shock after killing someone violently, who lay dead 100 feet away, who suddenly talk like that, even if they have to take a life. Is that something to celebrate? And this wasn't even the case. Let's give you this one now. It involves authorities too. But here's the headline. A man buys an entire street for $5,000 and the city is trying to take it. What's going on? I'll tell you. Jason Roy thought he'd gotten a deal when he purchased a vacant lot in Trenton, Ohio for $5,000 from the Butler County Sheriff's Office auction. That was 3 years ago. Turns out he bought the entire street and the city is now trying to take it back. Indisputable, we'll have James on in the bullpen tomorrow. Can't wait for that. He only planned to use the lot to build himself a home, but the price included the entire street. This is wonderful, where several other homes are located, money-wise, with the reporting. Now, the city of Trenton is trying to reclaim the street through eminent domain. I knew it. Fauntleroy told WCPO 9 News he's not being offered what he deserves. It's a little trick they play. Fair market value. Eminent domain, what do you need this for, city? Take him to federal court. They shut me out, Fauntleroy said of his interactions with the city. They blocked my calls. It's hard to even get through to anybody. It's been a nightmare. When the city began the process of reclaiming the land, Fauntleroy says they only assessed the value of the lot, not the entire street. Look, he bought the entire street. You got to pay him. Maybe you'll get away with eminent domain, but you got to pay him. I'm not sure how that occurs other than it was a private drive that was created through a homeowners association. Trenton City Manager Marcos Nichols told WCPO News. So he's faking the funk and trying to play it off. I don't know. We'll look into that. Homeowners Association was responsible for maintaining that property, upkeeping it. When asked why only a portion of the lot was considered for the appraised value, Nichols replied, I cannot speak to the appraised value, figured. According to Nichols, the city plans to convert the private drive, which is the only way to access several homes on the street, into a publicly maintained roadway. Okay, well, you can negotiate that and buy a portion, right? I mean, is this even legal? Eminent domain does allow the government to seize private property for public use, but the law also requires just compensation for that property. Definition of just compensation is often subject, though, to dispute. Don't just take advantage of someone because they don't have the means of getting an attorney, Fauntleroy asked. Ohio has a long history of eminent domain. Fauntleroy's battle is not unique. In the city of Norwood versus Horney, for instance, the Ohio Supreme Court ruled against the city, citing the importance of protecting property rights. I don't know what's going to happen here. Mr. Fauntleroy still should be able to get an attorney here. We've had situations like this, Jackson, happen here in Atlanta, and it took many years. It ruined people. But wouldn't you know it, in the discovery, things came out like maybe somebody down at City Hall said, just produce an engineer's report saying there's flooding, and let's just take the land. Because somebody had made a deal with business. It's just how it works. What say you about this one? I think it's dirty. I think Mr. Fauntleroy was quite smart, savvy, and he took advantage of what was rightfully offered. And now they won't even pay him what it's worth.
Well, at the end of the day, the street was sold to him. So it's kind of, who cares if it was an accident? That's what happened. So yeah, there's not much of an argument. He's going to have to get compensated. I don't know how much it's worth now or how any of that works in terms of that market, but he's going to have to be compensated fairly in some type of way, because the only other argument is that, well, we only meant to sell you a slither of this land, but that didn't become an issue until the government wanted that land for itself. So you're going to have to compensate him at the end of the day.
And for the city official who didn't seem to know much when responding to the news, WCPO's questions, I don't know about that. I have to look into that. Not sure how it happened. Do you believe it or do you cry foul?
I mean, it doesn't matter if he doesn't know how it happened. It happened. That's irrelevant to the fact of what transpired. If you really didn't know how that happened, then that's just incompetence on your part. And I mean, I don't really think there's anything important else to say about this. It happened, so you got to compensate them for it.
Yeah, I'd move in and put up lemonade stands and anything else I want. It's my property. See you in court. Jackson, we appreciate you always. Remind people where they can find your great work.
Yes, it's been good to be on with you twice this week, right? Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
We've been on twice this week. Oh, y'all can catch me. I'll be on the Power Panel tomorrow on the main show. Y'all can check me out at Politics and Paper on YouTube, youtube.com/@politicsandpaper. I'm very excited about the year ahead.
Okay. Tell my friends in St. Louis I miss them. Stay safe. You've got your sledding in. Don't throw any snowballs or anything like that. Just stay warm, Jackson.
Oh, yeah,
stay
I'm doing
warm.
my best. I'm
All
doing my
right.
best.
This is Indisputable. I'm Sharon Reed in for Dr. Ritchie today. We hope you'll join us again.